Hey guys, it's Kevin again. I know I said that I would not be reviewing Finding Carter individually, but I figured that I should review this episode individually, honestly. This episode was the best episode of the season, and I'm going to talk about why, but this is my review for Finding Carter Season 2, Episode 5, Wake Up Call. Now guys, this is what a quality episode of Finding Carter is. Last week's episode, fuck that shit. Don't ever make an episode like that again. This is what a Finding Carter episode needs to be. And I really like where they're going with this. It didn't even focus on Lori, and there were a lot of things that I loved about this episode. And you know what? I was thinking I'm not going to use this individually, but I am, and I am. I probably am, because if this is the direction they're taking this season, I'm really happy about it, definitely, because I've talked about it before. The best thing about the season, that's about how do we move on from what Lori has done. And this episode perfectly deals with that, and I love that. I love this episode dealt with that, and I thought that because of that, this episode was amazing. So let's get into this episode because, as I said, it was amazing. So basically, we see Carter's concerned by Ophi and Gabe at school, and they ask if she even goes to their school anymore, which I thought was kind of funny. And she says that they're funny, and Ophi asks about Lori, and Carter says it's been a rough few days, and says the new guidance counselor called, and she and her parents are there, and we get introduced to this new character, Abby, and basically Carter meets Elizabeth and David outside the counselor's office, and they head inside, and Abby says Carter's GPA is sliding, and she's chronically absent. Now, one of the things I love is that we haven't seen Carter in school for most of the season, and this explains why. She's so preoccupied with her stuff, and I like what Carter says here, because it really does sum up some of the stuff. It really does fix some of the problems of this season, because Carter admits school hasn't been the biggest priority for her, and says she just had to commit the woman she raised to a mental institution. You know, she had to do that, and it was really hard for her, and was kidnapped twice, and even though that was horribly done, I mean, I can understand her pain. So Elizabeth says school is important, but Carter insists she doesn't need help, and Abby asks if she's taking the college test tomorrow, and says it's vital to her future. She hands her a study guide, and Carter thanks them all for their time and concern, says message received. She leaves the office rolling her eyes, and tosses the study guide into the trash, and I kind of like seeing Carter in this position of not really giving a shit about her studies. I mean, I definitely love seeing that. I love seeing this rebellious side of Carter. That's something I love seeing last season. I like that we're getting it back this season. So she goes to see Crash at the shop, and I'm going to admit that I actually didn't hate Crash's episode. I didn't hate this, like, suddenly caring side of Crash. I thought it worked in this episode. I did. I think that he really is good for her, and I think, honestly, I know people don't like what they've done with Crash, but I like this storyline. I think if Crash wasn't there, who else would be there for Carter? Who else would be there to talk to her about these things? So I like that Crash is there for that reason only. So basically, he says that they're just looking out for her, and Carter says that Lori had many faults, but never got on her case about school and trust her to figure things out, and Crash introduces his Uncle Shane to her, and basically he's nice to Carter, and she asks why her family can't be that cool, and Crash says he wants to take her on a nice date tonight, and she says he doesn't have to, but he insists, and I kind of like seeing Crash in this, like, reform period. I know people aren't liking it, but I really liked it in this episode. Now, Taylor's storyline, I have to say, I actually kind of like this episode. I thought they handled it really well, because Taylor and Ophi are just having sex. They're basically in a sexual relationship right now, and we've seen that they've done this many times. She tells him it was fun, and Ophi says they hooked up 5 times, and she runs off each time, and he just wants her to stay. But Taylor thought that it was more friends with benefits, but he asked her for a date to the fair, and he insists she answers if she wants to go out with him, and she does, and he's happy, and honestly, I'd like to see these two get together. I would. I think that they're really cute in this episode, and I would like to see them get together. You can definitely see that the way Ophi thinks of Taylor doesn't necessarily think of Ophi, though. So Max and Bird are splitting bills, and she says she's short a couple $100 and says her grandma is shorting her allowance to try and pressure her, and Max says he'd spend her but doesn't have enough cash, and he says she needs to cut back on entertaining, and they make a plan. And Taylor asks Carter for lip gloss for her day, and she asks who it's with, and Taylor says it's with Ophi, and Carter says that's a surprise, but she likes it, and Carter says she has a date too, and Taylor isn't too happy because she then sees Crash, and of course, it's understandable why Taylor's upset with Crash for a multitude of reasons. I mean, he basically broke up her and Max. Max is now hanging out with her. He hurt Max, and it's pretty understandable why Taylor wants nothing to do with Crash right now, and I like seeing Taylor in that position. As much as I don't really like Taylor's character this season, I like what they did with her in this episode. I thought it was well done. I didn't think it was stupid what they did with her. I actually kind of liked her in this episode. So She points out the outfit she thinks Carter should wear, and Taylor spots a photo in her desk drawer and demands to know what it is. And we see that it's that pic of David undressed that Lori gave her as proof of the affair. So now Taylor finds out in this episode, and she found it completely the wrong way, and Taylor says Lori's crazy, and then asks if it's true. She looks at the photo and asks if that's why their mom and dad split, and Carter advises her to ask David and Elizabeth, and Taylor shows her dad the photo and asks if it's true. She asks if he had an affair with Lori, but he doesn't want to answer, and she says him sleeping with Carter's kidnapper is her business, but he shuts her down. And honestly, I felt really bad for Taylor in that scene. I really did. And Elizabeth says it's true and happened before Carter was kidnapped. And Carter says they didn't tell her. She found it on her own. And Grant and Taylor are furious that Carter didn't tell them, which is understandable why they're so pissed at her. And Taylor goes to walk out, and Grant asks if he can come too. She takes him and goes, and Taylor tells her to have fun on her date. And Carter lies and says it's a study date. And I really like that scene. So Ophi's nice to Grant and then asks if he's ready for fun. So you can, I can totally understand why Grant and Taylor are upset. I understand that, Carter found out, but they didn't find out. I can understand why they're upset about that. And Grant wasn't really annoying in this episode, but he still is like, okay, I don't really like him. So David's furious at Elizabeth for telling the kids. He says she was trying to make him look like a bad guy, and she says they got past her affair with Kyle and says the kids will be okay. David accuses her of plying the kids to get the kids on his side, and she says she wants the marriage to work, but he scoffs and says he's the only one working on it, which is true. And Hillary then shows up and says Elizabeth says maybe his date would like to weigh in on this, and Elizabeth asks David if they're seeing other people, but he says Grant told him he saw them kissing. And she says Kyle tried to kiss her and she stopped, and he says he and Hillary are friends. And Elizabeth says she thinks he wants to see other people. And Hillary says she's leaving and said it sounds like they're having problems communicating. And Elizabeth says maybe seeing other people isn't the worst idea and leaves. And Hillary says that's communication. So I like they actually are getting somewhere here. I mean, before it was like, why are you cheating on her and things? Why not just agree to see other people? It's probably the best thing for them to just agree to that. I thought that was good that they agreed to seeing other people. So, basically, Crash tells Carter about his career plan at the shop and his hopes for being manager in a few years, and he says he feels like he's going to be okay for the first time in a long time, and Crash says he has a surprise after dinner. She says she doesn't need another surprise, and he says the fair. She's shocked, and he says it's so wholesome and G-rated. He says it doesn't have to be, and Bird, Max, and Taylor and the crew are checking out Mr. Waves at the fair, which, if you guys don't know, kind of funny, Mr. Waves actually sings the intro for Finding Carter, which I thought that was kind of just like, just like a fun thing that they did, where having Mr. Waves perform. And of course, they sing the song Vagabond, and they're actually quite good. I have some of their music. They actually are a very good band, I have to say. If you guys want to check out a good band, definitely check out Mr. Waves. They're actually very good at what they do. I think they are a really good band, and I definitely enjoy their music a lot. They're really good. So I was happy to see them perform. I thought it was kind of funny that they did that. But basically, Gabe and Grant are there along with Crash and Carter, and she asks Taylor why she's not talking to her, and Taylor asks if their parents are getting separated over something that happened 15 years ago, and they agree that it doesn't really make sense like a lot of things with their family. Yeah, it really doesn't. So they run to Counselor Abby at the fair, and she asks if they're all ready for the prep test, and Gabe and Ophi ask for advice on skipping versus guessing, and Abby says to relax and do their best, and Carter walks off with Crash and out of the conversation, and she says that Abby, the new counselor at school, and Crash says that she doesn't seem so bad, and he asks if Carter's taking the SATs, and she says she doesn't want to talk about it. Anytime someone brings this up to Carter in this episode, she freaks out about, which I love seeing. And he wants her to go into the psychic tent to see about her future, and this is something that I like that they're doing, Crash. That Crash actually wants to help Carter. He's there for Carter. He wants her to get a good education so she can have a good future, and that's something I'm enjoying. I know people, again, aren't really liking Crash, but they put him to good use in this episode, I have to say. They don't make him annoying. They make him as someone who just wants to help Carter, which I really don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with him wanting to help Carter. I think that's really well done. Now, this scene I love because finally the writers actually remembered what happened last season. Because Grant strolls in the arcade, he sees some kids from school, and Reagan is there. Yes, finally, they have brought back the Reagan plot, which I was very happy about, and I was complaining about that last week, because it seemed like the writers just forgot everything that happened last season, and I'm very happy that they brought Reagan back, because, I'm very happy they brought Reagan back, because I really liked their relationship. I thought it was really cute last season. I thought it was honestly one of the more cuter parts of last season. I was very happy they brought it back here. But of course, this kind of shows that Grant is maturing, and they're both really nervous. I mean, if you were talking to someone online and you met them for the first time, I can understand why Grant is nervous about it. He says he can't believe they're talking in person. He asks what's up, and she says not much. He says they can go to separate corners and FaceTime each other, and I thought that was kind of funny. And they really have nothing to talk about, which I thought, honestly, was really funny. And it's a big improvement because Grant was so annoying last week, but this episode, his plot was so funny because literally they have nothing to talk about, and I thought that was really funny. So the fortune teller reads tarot cards and asks if Carter has a sister and 2 brothers, and she says just one. She tells Carter it all looks good and says she's a good student and committed to learning, and Carter mocks her and asks why everything is a good thing from a tarot reading, and that's true. When you have a tarot card, it never is usually a good thing. So Carter goes a little postal and walks out, and Crash apologizes and follows her, and Carter says everyone in her life has a plan but her, including him. It seems like, yeah, that's true. Everyone has a life, everyone in her life has a plan for her but her, and she stalks away, and Ophi and Taylor are then playing a game. He asks if she's okay. He says she seems distracted, and she says stupid family stuff. He says he grew up in a normal home, 2 dads, no kidnapping, and I thought this was a really good scene, and basically he wants to talk to her about it, but Taylor clearly doesn't want to talk to him about it. She says she doesn't want to talk, she wants to win, and I thought that was a good scene. I definitely really enjoyed that, in the sense that we see that Ophi does really think that he wants to get closer with Taylor, but Taylor just seems to want sex from him and just go out with him. I mean, you can tell she wants to make Max jealous, but I think it worked really well here. I don't think it was annoying. I think it worked out well. So Bird, Max, and Gabe chat, and Gabe says he thinks he can nail Abby, and Bird says she doesn't go after teacher. I thought that was really funny, and I'm like, seriously, Gabe, after everyone you're going after Abby, like, really? Some people think Bird, and she says she rented the bumper cars. Max says she doesn't have to buy friends, and reminds her about the bills, and she gets mad and leaves, and I kind of like where we're going with Max and Bird. I mean, I didn't like last week when they tried to make them in a relationship, but I like that Max is being a friend of Bird. I think that's well done. So Grant and Regan are playing laser tag, then she's gone. He goes looking for her. Where she went, I don't know. Probably because she doesn't want anything to do with him because it's awkward. So Carter spots Crash chatting with Abby and tells her to stay away from her boyfriend, but Crash says he was talking to her about Carter. And I thought this was definitely a good scene that we saw this here, because basically Abby says he told her that Carter's the smartest person he knows, and he leaves to take a call from Shane, and Abby says she's used to getting yelled at by students, and then says she saw the test prep book in the trash, and she tells Carter that if Crash can turn his life around, she can too. And I thought that was a really good line, because it's true. Because Crash has pretty much turned his life around. He's gone from this really rebellious, like, villainous character to this really caring person and just a really nice person overall. And Carter can do the same thing. But Carter doesn't really seem like she wants to do that. And I like seeing that here. And basically, Regan's then outside when Grant finds her. He accuses her of walking away, and she says she should pay closer attention. And she says she's got to get back to her family and leaves with hurt feelings. And obviously, I like that Grant actually felt bad in this episode, and he realizes that what he just said was a very that was a dick move right there. What he said, I mean, it really was a dick move. I mean, the one thing you could have said to her is just, I thought that was kind of just rude what he said, and hopefully they can fix things. I actually really do like Grant and Regan together. I think they're really cute together, and I do hope that they fix things. It was really funny with them in the episode, but I like that we did see that Grant realizes that he is sort of becoming a dick. So Taylor gets popcorn, finds Max outside. He asks if she's having fun. She asks what's bothering him. He asks her the same. They joke that they're physically connected, and he asks what's up with her, and she says her dad had an affair with Lori before she took Carter, and that's why her parents split. And he asks if she's okay, and she says she was mad they lied, but now she wishes she didn't know. And she says she was holding on to a fantasy her parents might get together, and now she says it's hopeless. It's pretty much hopeless now, and Max tells her to have faith, and Crash shows up and asks if Max takes care of a job for him tonight, and says it pays $200, and Max agrees since he needs the dough, and they leave, and Ophi won her a pink bear, and I thought that was really funny. He trades some of his drugs for it, and I thought it was so funny that he traded his drugs just to get her this pink bear and hands it over. I mean, he's just trying to just show her that he wants to have a relationship with her, and he asks if she wanted the saber tooth, but she said it's fine, she loves it, but she doesn't really look happy, probably because she wants to be with Max, and you can see that they still have that connection, and he's really the only person, as she said, the only person she can really talk to about this, and I thought that was definitely a very well done scene. So Elizabeth, now that her and David have decided to be with other people, she's now back with Kyle, and they're making out on her couch, and she asks why this when she shut him down the other night. And she says she and David decided to see other people, and he asked whose idea it was, and she says she's just trying to make it through the day, but is glad he's there, and she hears a noise and says Carter is there. She hustles him out the back with a promise to call as Carter comes in, because of course Carter doesn't know that she's now continued her thing with Kyle. So she heads upstairs, and Liz asks her if she's been drinking, and basically Carter says she wasn't studying and was out with Carter, and Elizabeth's horrified and asks why she let him back in her life. And she says that Abby loves Crash, thinks he's great, and Elizabeth asks why she's trying to blow her future, and Carter says college was never in the plan for her, and she says Lori never mentioned it, and now this pressure, now we see why she's not really interested in this, because Lori never really mentioned college, so Carter never thought it was that big of a deal, so she still doesn't think that, and it just shows something else that Lori has done to Carter that's affected her whole life. So basically, Carter says she has no idea what that looks like and she can't take it, and she sits down to cry, and Elizabeth sits with her. She says she doesn't know what to tell Carter. She says she doesn't want to push her away or be Lori, and Carter says Elizabeth is definitely not Lori, and Elizabeth says not to put so much pressure on herself, and she tells Carter to take the test and see what happens. She says she has nothing to lose, and Carter says she'll bomb it, and Elizabeth says then do, and I thought this was really good advice here, what Elizabeth said. She told her that if she bombs it, then she bombs it, and then they'll help her prepare better next time. And she tells Carter she's not alone in this, and Elizabeth kisses her and comforts her, and definitely you see that they're definitely going to try to make an effort, I think, to help out Carter. Definitely you can tell that's going to happen, and I thought that was a really well done scene. I definitely love seeing that. Definitely, I thought that was great. That's one of the reasons why I love their relationship so much, is just their relationship in general, I think, was great. So Grant comes home upset and opens his laptop. He tries to call Reagan. He gets the message that she's not available, and he can tell that he definitely ruined things with her. I hope that he didn't. I hope that he tries to fix things with her. But now that she goes to his school, I definitely think there's a possibility that maybe he could meet her at school. I'm not really sure. We'll see what happens. I mean, we never see Grant in school, so Hillary and David sit in her car talking about his classes and students. He kisses her and then stops. He says he shouldn't have done that, and she says she wanted him to, but he says he's still married. And Hillary says technically is separated, which is true. I mean, I was just thinking, David, you can do that now. You can now kiss Hillary, and it's like, really, you're gonna have an affair, but you're not gonna actually see other people when you can see other people? Like, what exactly does David want? I was kind of upset about that he just, went in for a kiss and didn't really want it, yet he can, have this affair with Lori, and he thinks that's okay. Whatever, I don't understand his logic there. But basically, I like what Hillary says. She likes him but doesn't want to break up his marriage. And she says she's in no rush and they can go slow and see what happens. And I actually really like that. I like seeing that from Hillary. I like that Hillary wasn't, a slutty character. I like that she actually does care about, David. She does care about his relationship. She understands that he's in a relationship and she doesn't really want to come between that. I think that's really good for David. I don't think he's ever really had someone that said that. I think that's really well done. I actually really love seeing that. And I didn't like Hillary last week, but now I really do like Hillary because she doesn't want to come in between the two of them. So I thought that was really well done. So Bird's with Max, and he apologized for what he said. She says he's right, and that she spends money on people to try and keep them friends. And she says money's the only reason for not telling. She puts up with her parents, and she's likely the same. And Max encourages her and says she doesn't need to be an ATM to have people crazy about her. She says he's sweet, and he says he has to get to work. She thanks him for taking the job, and he says he had to since someone spent all their rent money on bumper cars. And I thought that was just such a great scene. I mean, we know what Bird does. We know that Bird has all these money problems, and I like that, Max is trying to tell her that she doesn't really need that to be a good person, that people will love her no matter what. I thought that was definitely very well done. So David comes to see Taylor, and she asks why he's there on Mom's night. He says he wants to talk to her and sits. David says he's sorry for not telling her about Lori, and he says he should have, and he asks if she has any questions. Taylor asks if he loved her, and he says no. She asks how long it lasts, and he says it lasted one night. He says he knew it was a mistake, and it never happened again. And she asks why, and he says he and Elizabeth were having issues, and he says people use physical relationships to hide from problems, which is true, they do that, and says he hopes it never happens to her, and she looks upset because it's basically happening to her now. And I thought that was really great because it really is echoing what Taylor's doing to herself, and I think definitely Taylor's going to try to turn her life around. So Taylor looks at the pink bear from Ophi, and she now realizes, holy shit, this is happening to me, because that's exactly what she's doing. She's pushing Ophi into her life, but yet she doesn't really want to have a relationship with him, and she doesn't love him, and it's very similar to what David did, which I think is really interesting overall that she's doing that. So Max waits at the shop. When a car pulls up, it backs in and he closes the garage door. The guy opens the trunk and hands Max the keys. He says to make sure the lock placed up extra tight. He agrees and the guy leaves, and Max watches him go and shuts the door. And he unlocks the trunk and sees it's full of drugs, and Max freaks out, and obviously he freaks out because he knows the crash associated with that. So Elizabeth finds David in the kitchen the next morning. She asks about his date. He says it was fine, asks how her night was. She says it was uneventful. She says she has a heart-to-heart with Carter, and basically, she says she thinks she got through to her. They hear the door and see Carter climbing in the car with Crash and taking off. And Elizabeth's pissed because, again, she doesn't really trust Crash right now. And I think that's going to be the person that's going to take the longest to get Liz's trust back is, I think, Crash. I think for Elizabeth, the one person that Elizabeth might never trust is Crash. And especially at the end of this episode, I don't think she's going to. So Bird gets a call from Max to the test, and she thanks him for last night. Taylor hears and is jealous. Bird says Max is never moving out, and Ophi sits down by Taylor, who asks him for a booty call in the library. They make out, and Ophi asks if she's okay, but she insists she's fine. She doesn't look fine, and I really hope that she tells Ophi what's really going on with her, that, she really wants Max, and she's only doing this because Max is with Bird. But the thing is, Max and Bird are just a friendship. I think that's really what's going on there. I don't think that they're together. I think they're just friends at this point. So Gabe shows up for the test, flirts with Abby. He asks if she has a boyfriend. She says she's not talking about her personal life with him. He doesn't give up, but she sends him on his way. She sees Elizabeth, and asks Abby why she told Carter that Crash is a good guy. And Elizabeth says he's a criminal and a terrible influence. And Abby points out that Crash is dropping Carter off for the test and asks Elizabeth if Elizabeth is sure. And Crash made her an SAT card package with a snack, drink, pencils, and a calculator, which honestly is really adorable, and she says she needs all the help she can get. She says she's thinking about how Lori never asked about school, homework, and didn't care if she cut class. And she says maybe she wasn't just being a cool mom. Maybe she just didn't care. That's really what it was, that Lori simply didn't care. And she says Lori didn't want to be alone, so she may not have wanted her to go to college. And Crash says that's messed up. And Carter says no one is more messed up than Lori. And she hugs him and goes inside. So Crash goes to work, finds a Mad Max. He asks where he's been. He asks if Crash set him up. He says the car from last night was filtered with coke. And Crash looks startled because he had nothing to do with it. So the question is this Uncle Shane that did it? Definitely am interested in seeing what's going to happen there. So overall, guys, a great episode. I love this episode. I don't know what happened last week, but this episode was so much better. Such a huge improvement. Now I love the show again. Now I can love the show again, and that's awesome. But let's get into more about this episode. Carter. I love seeing Crash help out Carter. That's definitely something I love seeing. Is Elizabeth going to realize that Crash has turned his life around? I think it's going to take a while for her to get Crash's, to trust Crash and for Crash to get her trust back from Elizabeth. But everyone else seems to trust him, which I definitely love seeing. And I think that was definitely very well done. Something I really loved. What's going to happen now with Max and Crash, though? Did Crash's uncle, try to ruin things? Is he on the same path as Crash was last season? I mean, definitely I think Crash can help him turn his life around. But from the looks of next episode, it definitely looks like Crash is going to be in big trouble. So I'm very worried for Crash. We'll see what happens, I guess. Let's talk about David and Hillary. I really like David and Hillary. I think what Hillary said to him was great. I think, her saying that she doesn't really want to be in this relationship and, have him cheat on his wife, I think was really well done. Is he going to listen to her? Is he going to try to, do things? Is he going to tell Elizabeth what's going on? I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen. Is Elizabeth going to tell David about her affair with Kyle? That could definitely happen. We'll see what happens there. Taylor. I really love where they're going with Taylor. At first, I hated seeing Taylor in this, rebellious side, but honestly, I like seeing now, because now we see that it's echoing what David did. She doesn't want to become like David, and she doesn't want to end up like how Lori and, how Elizabeth and David are, so she, I think, is definitely going to tell Ophi the truth. I think it's going to take her a while to, but I think eventually she will tell Ophi the truth, because it's pretty, you can tell that while Ophi really likes her, she is just doing this to cover up the fact that she's still in love with Max and wants him back and wants to fix things. Max and Bird, though, I think are just friends. I think that eventually maybe something will deepen, but for right now, I think they're just friends, and I like that they're just friends. I think that's really good. Grant, I like seeing Grant with, with Reagan. I hope he does try to fix things with her. I know that Reagan wants something to do with him right now, but I really hope that he does try to fix things, because I love those two together. I do. I think they're really good together, and I hope that Grant does try to fix things with her. We'll see what happens, I guess. And I guess the only other question I have is this whole Gabe and Abby thing is really weird. I hope Gabe stays away from Abby because it's really weird what he's doing. It's not normal. I hope he understands that's really not normal. But let me talk about why this episode was so much better than last week's. Why is this the direction they need to go in? Because this episode wasn't stupid. Carter wasn't an idiot in this episode like last week. Last week's episode, I don't know what the hell happened. A bunch of characters weren't even like how they should be. They were out of character, most of them, and this episode focused a lot more on what I wanted them to focus on. It didn't focus on stupid shit. It didn't focus on something stupid with Lori. Although I liked what they did with Lori, I thought it was terribly handled, and I don't think we're going to see Lori for the rest of the season. What I think the rest of the season is going to be is the repercussions of what that's done to everyone, how everyone deals with this. Because now that Taylor knows about David and Lori's affair, she wants to make sure she doesn't end up like them, which I really love seeing. I really like seeing them on this path. I mentioned seeing what's going to happen there. And now that we have this whole thing with Crash, with him turning himself around, now he could end up screwing him. It's him, you know, screwing it up for himself, which I mentioned seeing what's going to happen there. I like seeing Carter in this, like, rebellious state. I like seeing Taylor that way. Definitely something I like seeing. That's something I thought was really good about this episode, was seeing everyone in this, like, rebellious state. And Grant wasn't annoying this episode. Grant actually had some good story, and he wasn't annoying like he's been for the past 2 episodes. I thought he actually had a good, decent storyline here, and it didn't involve Joan, which was good. I don't want it to involve Joan. Joan's a good character, but I don't want her to just be with Grant all the time. Just don't. The only reason they had Joan was because Meredith Baxter is a great actress. That's the only reason why they had Grant paired with Joan. But overall, guys, I love this episode. Best episode of the season by far. Really hope that the next episode is as good as this one. And I'm happy I'm reviewing the show individually now because I missed reviewing it individually. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Was this better than last week's? For me, it really was. I thought this was a much better episode. And I'll see you guys in my next video, which will either be for a movie review or for tonight's episode of Game of Thrones. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.